So we're going to do Tuscan chicken today. It's a great dish of chicken and veg and Parmesan and spinach. Really great. It's also called Marry Me Chicken as well. So let's cook it together.
Okay, so the ingredients for Tuscan chicken are obviously chicken, so onions, some peppers, some single cream, some garlic, some Parmesan, some spinach. Should be puree, haven't got puree, so therefore just got some tomatoes for colour. It's more colour than flavour. Also some flour and some paprika that I'll show you in a second, so let's get started.
Okay, so here we go. So we can start with the chicken. What we need to consider when we get the chicken is, if we have a little zoom in on the chicken, obviously, without getting too many details, there are some bits of chicken you don't want to eat, all right? So here, for example, there's a little bit of sinew. We want to cut that out because that was where it was on the actual chicken itself, right? So we take that out because what that will mean is, if when we cook that, that'll be really chewy and not particularly pleasant, right? So what we need to do is just take that out first of all. Now, if I was to cook that chicken breast like that and literally just kind of fry it with the sauce and everything else, that would probably take 20 minutes to cook, right? It'd be very difficult to know if the inside is done. You can use chicken thighs for this. Again, it takes a while to cook. The best option, my suggestion for this, is to cut the chicken into pieces, all right? So we're using a red board. Remember, we're using a red board, but because we're cooking it in one go, we can use red board for the veg as well, all right? So all I would do here then, we've taken off the bit we don't really want, so the chewy bit. Cut this into fairly decent sized portions, cut that down like that, and then we just want this in nice even sized portions. Right, maybe just small bits, sort of decent sized bits. As you're cutting, if you see that there's a bit you sort of think, oh, what's that? Just chop that out as well. All right, and now I'm gonna do that with all the chicken, which you will see prepared in a second. So what now I'm going to do is do some veg prep. As I've said previously, we can use a red board, which I have cleaned after doing the chicken, because everything is cooked together, so therefore that's okay to do. So the pepper, there's a few ways you can do a pepper. You can look on YouTube, there's loads of options. The way that I would generally teach it is, I know it doesn't have 4 sides, let's assume it's got 4 sides. You're going to cut down one side, cut down the other side, cut down the other side, cut down the other side, all right? So you don't want the seed really, you can cut the little end bit off as well if you want to. Let's just get rid of that. At this point, you don't really want the seeds, more because it's not nice to eat, and you want to take the white out as well, all right? So what we're gonna do here is, I'll just show you one quickly, so you get the idea. You want it in chunks, all right? So cut down, and then like that. Right, just nice kind of even chunks. Think kind of logically that when you're gonna take a forkful, you want a forkful of every ingredient. So I'll do all those in a second. Let's remind you about the onion, right? A real important skill. So that's the root there, and that's just like the top bit. What you wanna do is you wanna cut the top off, like that, so it creates a flat base on the flat base. Bridge hold, and then you're going to put your knife, turn it that way, you're going to put your knife through the roots, like that. We now have 2 holes. What you're now going to do is just grab a corner and peel. Sometimes onions can be a bit of a pain, literally, and if it's difficult, you can actually grab like the second layer down, if it's being a bit difficult, which it can be sometimes, like that. Like I say, I'll do more in a minute. Again, we want it in chunks, all right? So here what we're going to do is I'm gonna put the knife in near the back, cut down, knife in near the back. Right, so you've gone to the bottom, not way to the back. Turn it this way, and there I've made some nice chunks, right, so like that. Obviously, if the cuts are closer together, then it's gonna be finer. Because we're cooking all the veg together, they can all go together as well. So this is about preparation, that mise en place, right, that French word, but means preparation. Here is garlic. Ignore the fact it's shooting a little bit, it's just what it is, it's not a problem. Cousin of an onion, so take the end off, like that, take the other end off, and you want to peel the paper off. Sometimes it falls off like that, other times it doesn't. So let's just do another one. So there's a few, there's not really a set recipe for this, right, because you might want like less onion, more garlic, less garlic, but you'll see in a little bit. And with this, you want this in slices, I would suggest, all right? So remember, use the claw grip, so keep your fingers out of the way. You want nice thin strips. You can, if you want to use jarred garlic, that's okay. Frozen garlic works as well, really good. You can grate this if you want to. If you want a nice finer garlic, that's all good as well. So at that point, that's going to be our mise en place, our veg preparation done, and then we're ready for the next stage, which is cooking the chicken. Okay, great. So now all my mise en place is done. So my peppers, my onion, my garlic is all chopped up and ready. Everything else is ready to rumble. But we're now gonna not so much bread the chicken, but coat it in a seasoned flour. Why do we do that? Because it kind of protects the chicken, gives it a little bit of a coating, and it will thicken the sauce as well. So we have some flour, unsurprisingly, in there, but in there goes a bit of smoked paprika. It can be hot paprika, can be just regular paprika, or no paprika at all, but it does give a nice colour, a little bit of a background flavour. About 2 teaspoons, but you, again, don't want much because it will be too much. You want some seasoning in there as well, so we always use more than sea salt, just a nice natural product as well, so a decent pinch of that in there, and a little bit of salt would be nicer to do freshly ground, can't find the grinder, so we got that. All right, so give that a little mix around, and then probably no surprise really, we're going to put our prepared chicken cut in nice even sized chunks, with any bits of a gristle or anything you wouldn't really want to eat has been taken out. Let's move it out of the way, and then literally you're going to dust this all over. Now with this, you need to do it at the time. Don't be tempted to do it too early ahead, because if I went away and put this in the fridge and came back, say half an hour later, it would go all kind of gluey and sticky because the moisture from the chicken would soak into the flour, it would go a bit strange. All right, so what we're going to do in a minute, we're going to fry this. I'll show you that in a second, and then that's the first stage, because chicken is the high risk food. We need to make sure the chicken is cooked first before we do anything else. All right, so there's chicken. Okay, so I'm using this quite large frying pan. But you can use, whatever, it needs to be a frying pan really. Decent amount of oil, turn it on, obviously at a decently high heat, but you don't want to burn it either. How do I know the oil's hot enough? You got a few ways really. You can sprinkle a little bit of flour in, just to make sure it sizzles, or just start to put a piece in. Now that's what you want. So the cameraman can have a quick look. That's what, now be really key. I've got loads of chicken. There's absolutely no way, so don't just chuck it all in. There's no way that is going to, I've got to do it in bits, in short, right? Because if you put too much in, the pan and the oil will get cold and it won't fry, it will all stew. And what we're looking for here is to cook the chicken, but with a nice crust. So I reckon it's about that. Now this takes a while. What's going to happen is we're going to cook this. Now a few key things here. Number one, what utensil are you going to use? This is non-stick. You don't want to use a metal one because you'll be scraping the surface off. You want to use either a plastic or a wooden or similar, because you won't scrape the plastic off, scrape the coating off as well. But what we're going to do then is we're going to let it fry. We don't shake the pan, we don't mess around with it. We're looking for a nice seal. So in short, all the chicken needs to be cooked. Once this is done and I've turned it over, I'll show you that in a second, and it's done, and I'll show you how we know it's done. I'm going to take it out, then I would cook the next lot of chicken. Cook that, take it out. Next lot of chicken, take it out. If you're making it a lot, it takes a while, but it is what it is, right? So the chicken is the key thing. That's what we're going to cook first. So this is what we're looking for. Notice how you can hear it sizzling. I'm not shaking it, I'm moving it. And if I pick one piece up, I could use obviously the spoon to help me with that process as well. That's not quite brown enough, right? You want a little bit more colour on there as well, because colour equals flavour. Not burnt, you're going to burn the flour, but you do want a bit of colour, right? So it's going to take another minute or so. Okay, so at this point, I can use a spoon, I can turn one over. You can see how it's a little bit browner there. And actually when I touch it, what happens is that the flour has made a little bit of a kind of a skin, if you like. It's made it go a bit firmer, and that's going to really help the texture as well and thicken the sauce. So a little bit of takes a while, but turn it over each bit. I'll do this in a second. What I'm now going to do is put the other side exactly the same and take it out. So I'll show you in a second how we know when it's cooked, right? Because it's not just the colour, right? Because if we cook it too high, it might look brown, but actually the middle is raw. Right? So how do we know? Okay, so the chicken needs to be cooked before we take it out, but this is where we are at this point. Let me turn it over. Okay, so I think this chicken is done. How do I know that? Right, so one way, take a piece up, any meat, any protein. I'm going to take it off for 1 second because it's making a racket. There we go. So protein will firm up when it's cooked. So if you push it, it should feel basically
firm. If it's too squidgy, any meat, it probably isn't done. The other way you can do it, if you have one, is a meat thermometer. Now we're going to stick it in the middle, not in the pan, and it should read 75 and over. Now that's shot to 92, 93, 94. So I know that is now cooked in the middle without chopping it open. Of course, the other option, if you're not sure, you haven't got a meat thermometer, is break it. So the biggest part, break it open, you're looking for white in the middle. So you're going to choose the biggest bit you've got, and then that will tell you. What I'm now going to do then with this chicken is I'm going to take it out, a bit more oil, and fry the next batch in that same process, and see you in a second. Okay, so all the chicken is cooked. It's in a bowl. I've now added some more oil on the same heat, nice kind of mid to high heat. I put the peppers, the onions and the garlic all together, and I'm going to cook that until it starts to go a bit soft. We're not looking for colour actually in this, but we just want it to soften a little bit. Alright, so you need to turn the heat down, need to do that, you've got to burn the garlic, that would not taste great. That's going to take 2, 3, 4 minutes just to cook that a little bit further down. Right, we'll see in a minute. Okay, so nearly there. We've got our chicken that's all cooked. I've got loads, obviously more than the recipe actually is. I've got my peppers, my onion, my garlic, and it's all nice and fried. Show you that in a second. I've got my other stuff done. I've got ready. I've got my tomatoes, my Parmesan, my water, all ready to go, all my mise en place. Notice I've had a clean up as well. Really important that you wash as you go. It's hygienic, it saves time ultimately. So let's have a look in the pan. We kind of do it live from now. So as you can see in the pan, we've got our onions, peppers, garlic, not brown, but softened. At this point, we now put our chicken back in. We are confident our chicken is cooked, but actually, if we're not too confident, we're going to cook it in the sauce a little bit anyway. But I stress, you need to make sure the chicken is cooked when you take it out and you do the veg as well. Now, at this point, in goes the liquid. Now, again, there is a recipe for a set couple of portions. I'm doing a lot more, so actually I might need to adapt first. So put some water in. This is 150 mils. Might actually have to add some more, and it's 150 mils of cream. That said, that is based upon the actual original recipe. So I'm going to use my common sense. This has got to have a sauce. If it's all sitting on the bottom and it's not saucy enough, I need to add more cream and more water, right? In proportion. It is meant to be saucy. You might serve it with rice or you serve it with mashed potato. There we go. All right, so we're gonna put that on. We need that to bubble and boil. While that's happening, we're gonna have our stock cube. Now you can use either like the jelly stock cube or the square stock cube, and it's just open that and drop it in. Crumble it in, just drop it in. The heat will melt it, so that's a bit of added flavour. It should be tomato puree. I haven't got tomato puree, and it's really about the colour more than the flavour. So I'm going to use some tin tomatoes. These are quite nice ones from Italy. Again, the recipe says about 2 tablespoons of puree, so I'm going to use a couple of spoons, right? Because I'm doing more. Again, it's fairly adaptable. This is not a tomato-based sauce, so it literally is for colour. So don't use too much. Mix that through as well. Okay, so at this stage here, as you can see, now I'm probably all right. I think let's put in, enough liquid. What's going to happen now is this: we now have our spinach. That looks loads. When it goes in there, is none at all. You've got 2 ways of doing this. One way you can do it is peer to side, stick it in the microwave, let it cook in the microwave, take it out, put it in. The other option, this is more fun, is just chuck it in. Now it looks absolutely shed loads, and like there's a forest of spinach. And how's that possibly all going to work? It will work. All right. So what's going to happen is when it hits heat, spinach will shrink down. Give it a stir. Again, make sure you use an appropriate size pan, and we're going to come back to you in a few seconds' time in the video to show you what it's going to look like. Perfect. As you can see, the spinach has wilted, and we want bubbling. Bubbling equals cooking. If it's bubbling too much, it's going to be sticking. You literally just want the liquid to bubble, and that's it. Because we know the chicken's cooked, we know the veg is cooked, you're wilting the spinach. You don't want to keep bubbling it because it will burn on the bottom, right? Due to the, just because of the cream and the other stuff. So as soon as it bubbles like it is, it's done. I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to slightly move over here and put it on the counter. If you're at home, don't do this unless you've got metal counters like we do, because it will burn the counter, remember. Now, you take it off heat and the Parmesan goes in. Don't all be weird about the Parmesan. Any Parmesan will do, really posh, really cheap, doesn't matter, but it really adds some extra seasoning, if you like. So what you're going to do is grate this. These graters are great, by the way.
That isn't a joke. Graters are great, but you get kind of the point. Grate these in, or grate the cheese in. Again, this just adds a little bit of luxury, a nice kind of note, a bit of seasoning, very salty Parmesan, so don't add too much salt. Then you're gonna give it a taste and see if you think it needs more salt or more pepper. If it does, then add some, all right? It's really important you season it as it goes. Remember the chicken's seasoned as well. And there we go, there is our Tuscan chicken or our marry me chicken. So you're probably hard to see there. Let me just put a little bit in a bowl. I'll try and do it neatly, probably won't happen, but I'll do my best. So nice bits, served with mash, rice, boiled potatoes. You know, there's quite a lot of veg going on there, maybe a bit of broccoli if that's your bag. So I've made a mess, let me make that look a bit neater. Hopefully you get the point. There we go, all right, so there is our Tuscan chicken, marry me chicken. Enjoy.